The reality of this week goes far beyond standings and seedings, and that's where I want to start talking directly to you as an Eagles fan who understands context. Yes, Philadelphia has already secured the NFC East. Yes, the room to move from the current number 3 seed is limited, but this trip to Buffalo in Week 17 is not a formality, and it's not about checking a box. It's about momentum, identity, and measuring exactly where this team is as the postseason gets closer. The Eagles arrive in Buffalo riding 2 straight wins, and more importantly, playing their best football in recent weeks. You can feel it on tape. You can see it in how the offense is functioning with rhythm, balance, and confidence. This is not a unit searching for answers anymore, but one stacking positive weeks and sharpening its edge. Smash the like button if you bleed green and white and believe in the work of Howie Roseman. And if you can, drop a comment like this: "Go Eagles, I believe." And then there's the opponent. Buffalo is 11-4, playing at home, potentially in cold, windy, uncomfortable conditions that they believe give them an edge. This is a team built around one of the most physically imposing quarterbacks in the league. Josh Allen isn't just a passer you scheme against. He's an entire system you have to survive for 4 quarters. He carries their offense with his arm, his legs, and his ability to turn broken plays into explosive gains. He has a 103 passer rating, 25 touchdown passes, 552 rushing yards, and 12 rushing touchdowns. Those numbers aren't accidental. They reflect a quarterback who breaks tackles, attacks space, and punishes hesitation. Give him a crease and he can turn it into a 25-yard gallop. Miss a tackle and he'll make something out of nothing. That's the challenge facing Vic Fangio in this Eagles defense, and even with experience against Allen, no one pretends there's an easy answer. Some of that experience comes directly from inside the Eagles locker room. Jalen Phillips and Michael Carter both faced Buffalo earlier this season when they were with Miami and the New York Jets. Phillips described the Bills as a dynamic team with weapons everywhere, led by a quarterback he considers arguably the best in the league. His insight wasn't just about talent, but about mentality. Buffalo finds ways to win, especially when opponents let up. They build momentum, and if you don't keep your foot on the gas, they will come back and take the game from you. That awareness matters, because this isn't a team you beat by surviving 3 quarters. You have to finish. Phillips also pointed out something that often gets overlooked with Buffalo. They are committed to running the football. Allen still trusts his arm and can make every throw, but he's more careful with the ball now, and the run game is a true foundation. That commitment starts with James Cook, and this is where the matchup becomes especially demanding for Philadelphia. Buffalo leads the NFL with 159 rushing yards per game, and Cook is at the center of it all. He has 1,532 rushing yards, the best mark in the league, and 12 games with 100 or more yards on the ground. He's not a one-dimensional runner. He can work between the tackles, explode into the second level, and punish poor angles. Every carry is a threat. The Eagles expect Jalen Carter to be on the field, and that matters. The run defense is significantly better than it was earlier in the season, but this is a test of discipline and tackling. You cannot let Cook get rolling, because once he does, Allen becomes even more dangerous. There's also a shift happening on the Eagles' defense due to injury. Nakobe Dean is out with a hamstring injury, and that opens the door for rookie Jihad Campbell to step into a larger role. Campbell has contributed since day one, but this is a different level of responsibility. Dean's impact as a blitzer and run defender has been significant, and Buffalo will absolutely test Campbell. Expect physical runs in his direction, designed to see how he holds up and whether he stays assignment sound under pressure. This is one of those moments that can define a young player's trajectory. Weather always comes up in Buffalo, and Michael Carter knows it well. Cold, wind, precipitation, and the psychological edge the Bills believe they have in those conditions. But Carter's message is simple and grounded. The ball still has to be thrown, and the ball still has to be run. Weather affects everyone, and at the end of the day, it comes down to players executing. His familiarity adds value, but preparation and film study matter more than folklore. On the other side of the ball, there's a quiet confidence building around the Eagles' run game. Over the last 4 games, they're averaging 4.96 yards per rushing attempt. Saquon Barkley looks explosive and controlled. Tank Bigsby provides a powerful, reliable complement. The offensive line has been excellent, imposing its will and creating lanes consistently. There's a telling stat that defines who this team is when it's at its best. The Eagles are 8-0 this season when they run the ball at least 30 times. That's not coincidence. That's identity. And it becomes even more intriguing when you look at Buffalo's recent struggles against the run. Injuries along their defensive line have taken a toll, and over the last 10 games, they've allowed 143.6 rushing yards per game. That's the pressure point. That's where Philadelphia can dictate terms, control tempo, and take the crowd out of the game if they execute. This game isn't about standings. It's about proving that what we've seen the last few weeks is real, sustainable, and dangerous going into January. It's about answering physical football with physical football, regardless of weather or environment. From your perspective as a fan watching this unfold, what do you think matters most in this matchup, and where do you believe this game will truly be decided? This is where the conversation deepens, because once you strip away the noise, this matchup is really about control. Control of tempo, control of emotion, and control of detail. Buffalo thrives when games turn chaotic. Josh Allen improvising, James Cook breaking loose, the crowd feeding off momentum swings. Philadelphia, at its best, is the opposite. Methodical, physical, suffocating. The Eagles don't need fireworks to win games. They need precision and discipline repeated over and over until the opponent cracks. That's why this game feels like such an important measuring stick, even with the division already secured. When you look at how the Eagles have played over the last few weeks, the offense isn't just productive, it's intentional. The commitment to the run is not situational, it's foundational. When this team runs the ball 30 or more times, they're undefeated for a reason. It shortens the game, protects the defense, and forces opponents to defend every blade of grass. Against a Buffalo front that has been vulnerable due to injuries, this isn't just a tendency, it's an opportunity. Saquon Barkley isn't freelancing, he's hitting holes decisively. Tank Bigsby isn't just spelling carries, he's punishing defenders late in drives. And the offensive line has been setting the tone, creating movement at the line of scrimmage and keeping the offense on schedule. That matters in cold, potentially sloppy conditions, where style points disappear and execution becomes everything. Defensively, the Eagles are facing one of the most demanding assignments in football. You don't stop Josh Allen, you survive him. That's the reality every defensive coordinator understands. Vic Fangio knows Allen from past battles, but history shows that familiarity alone doesn't neutralize him. What it does is clarify priorities. Gap integrity isn't optional. Rush lanes can't collapse carelessly. Missed tackles turn into explosive plays. Allen's ability to extend plays is what separates Buffalo from many other offenses, especially when the receiving group relies heavily on tight ends Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox rather than star-studded wideouts. That puts stress on linebackers and safeties, particularly in zone coverage, and it's why communication on the back end will be critical. James Cook adds another layer of stress. Buffalo doesn't run the ball to complement the pass. They run the ball because it works. Leading the league in rushing yards per game isn't a fluke. Cook's vision and burst make him dangerous on any down, and once defenders start cheating toward him, Allen becomes even more lethal. This is where Jalen Carter's presence looms large. His ability to anchor against the run changes how aggressive the linebackers can be. It allows the defense to stay balanced instead of reactive. Without that interior strength, Buffalo would dictate terms. With it, the Eagles at least force the Bills to earn every yard. Then there's the human element inside the locker room. Jalen Phillips' comments weren't about hype, they were about awareness. Buffalo finds ways to win when opponents lose focus. That's the warning. Games against the Bills rarely stay comfortable. Even when you're ahead, they can flip the script in minutes. That's why keeping your foot on the gas isn't just a phrase, it's a necessity. The Eagles can't afford passive stretches, especially on the road. Every drive, every possession has to be treated as a chance to impose identity, not protect a lead. The absence of Nakobe Dean forces another internal test. Jihad Campbell stepping into a bigger role isn't just about filling snaps, it's about trust. Buffalo will test him. They will run at him. They will try to isolate him in space. How he responds tells you a lot about the depth and resilience of this defense. This is how teams grow in December. Not when everything goes right, but when roles shift and pressure increases. Weather will be discussed endlessly, but the player's mindset is clear. As Michael Carter pointed out, the elements don't change the fundamentals. The ball still has to be secured. Tackles still have to be made. Routes still have to be run with precision. Buffalo believes weather favors them because they live in it, but Philadelphia isn't a finesse team trying to survive conditions. This is a physical roster built to play grown man football anywhere. That's why this game matters, regardless of playoff seeding math. It's about answering questions before January asks them louder. Can the Eagles dictate games on the road against elite opponents? Can they stay disciplined against chaos? Can they lean on their strengths without flinching? Win or lose, how they play will echo into the postseason. And even beyond the schemes and matchups, there's a psychological layer to this game that can't be ignored. Buffalo plays with a sense of urgency that comes from knowing every mistake gets magnified in January. Philadelphia, meanwhile, is playing with something just as dangerous: clarity. There's no confusion about who this team is or how it wants to win. The last few weeks haven't been about experimenting or searching for balance. They've been about leaning harder into what works and trusting it under pressure. That's a different mindset than earlier in the season, and you can feel that shift when you watch them. When the Eagles are committed to the run, it's not just about yardage. It's about body blows. It's about forcing defenders to tackle, over and over, in cold conditions where that wears on you faster than the stat sheet shows. Long drives don't just end with points, they end with doubt creeping into the opposing sideline. Buffalo's defensive front has fought through injuries, but that cumulative effect is real. If Philadelphia can stay patient and avoid negative plays, those 4- and 5-yard runs start turning into something more in the second half. That's when games tilt, but patience has to be paired with awareness. Against Buffalo, no lead feels safe if execution slips. One missed assignment, one poor angle, one broken tackle, and suddenly Josh Allen has turned a quiet stretch into a momentum swing. That's why discipline is just as important as aggression. Fangio's defense doesn't chase chaos. It tries to contain it. Keeping Allen boxed in, forcing him to earn yards instead of gifting them, is the only sustainable approach. That doesn't mean he won't make plays. He will. The question is whether those plays come within the structure of the game or blow it open. And this is where complementary football becomes the deciding factor. If the offense sustains drives, the defense can stay fresh. If the defense forces Buffalo into longer possessions, the offense gets more chances to dictate tempo. Special teams matter more in games like this as well, where field position in tough conditions can quietly decide outcomes. None of these elements live in isolation. They stack, just like confidence stacks when a team believes in its formula. This is why Eagles fans should be watching this game with a sharper eye than just the final score. How does Philadelphia respond after adversity? How do they handle a sudden swing in momentum? Do they double down on their identity or drift away from it? Those answers matter more than where the Eagles sit on the playoff bracket when the week ends. This stretch of the season is about revealing truth, about finding out which habits hold under stress and which ones crumble. Buffalo is a stress test. On the road, in the cold, against a quarterback who can bend games to his will. If the Eagles come out of this game still looking like themselves, still imposing their style, that sends a message well beyond one Sunday. Because when this game reaches its critical point, the fourth quarter isn't just about talent, it's about habits. And that's where this Eagles team is quietly separating itself. The habits being built over the last few weeks are visible in how drives are finished, how defenders rally to the ball, and how mistakes are limited instead of multiplied. That matters against a team like Buffalo, because the Bills are designed to punish hesitation. If you blink, they accelerate. If you panic, they capitalize. Philadelphia's challenge is to stay steady when the game inevitably feels unstable. Watch how the Eagles handle third downs on both sides of the ball. Offensively, staying ahead of the chains keeps the full playbook open and allows the run game to remain a constant threat. Defensively, forcing Josh Allen into longer third down situations doesn't guarantee stops, but it increases the chances of making him hold the ball just long enough for pressure to matter. Those small margins are everything in a game like this. It's not about shutting Buffalo down, it's about narrowing the windows where they can hurt you. Another subtle factor is communication. Road games in Buffalo are loud, emotional, and unforgiving. Silent counts, quick adjustments, and composure after big plays allowed will be tested. This is where veteran presence matters, and where the Eagles' recent stretch of cleaner football becomes relevant. Fewer penalties, fewer blown assignments, fewer self-inflicted wounds. Against lesser teams, those mistakes can be survived. Against Buffalo, they become turning points. There's also a sense that this game is as much about sending a message internally as it is externally. The Eagles don't need to prove anything to the league in December. What they need is confirmation inside the building that their formula travels, that it works in cold weather, that it works against elite quarterbacks, that it works when the margin for error shrinks. You don't get that confirmation from talk or projections. You get it from 4 quarters of execution. And that's why the result, while important, isn't the full story. How the Eagles respond to adversity, how they finish drives, how they tackle in space, how they protect the football, those are the real indicators. This is the kind of game that sharpens a team if handled correctly. It exposes weaknesses if ignored. Buffalo will bring everything they have, because that's who they are. Philadelphia has to answer by being exactly who it claims to be. As this unfolds, remember that December football is about revealing truths, not hiding them. Every snap is a data point. Every series is a statement. Whether it's the run game grinding down a defense, or the defense forcing Allen to work for every yard, the Eagles have a chance here to reinforce their identity at the perfect time. And the deeper this game goes, the more it becomes about restraint. Not emotionless football, but controlled aggression. Buffalo feeds off emotion, off crowd surges, off moments where a single play flips belief. Philadelphia has learned, sometimes the hard way, that the fastest way to lose control in games like this is to chase those moments instead of managing them. That's why situational football looms so large here. Red zone efficiency, 2-minute decisions, fourth quarter clock awareness. These are the quiet battles that don't show up in highlights but decide outcomes. Pay attention to how the Eagles manage possessions once the game tightens. Long, methodical drives don't just keep Josh Allen on the sideline, they drain the emotional energy out of the stadium. Every snap where the Bills' defense stays on the field in the cold matters. Every first down earned on the ground reinforces the Eagles' physical identity. This isn't glamorous football, but it's winning football in December. And it's exactly the type of approach that travels when conditions get ugly. Defensively, the goal isn't to win every snap, it's to win sequences. A stop after a big Buffalo play, a tackle short of the sticks after Allen scrambles, a forced third and long that resets the down and distance math. These moments disrupt rhythm. They force Buffalo to string together perfection instead of surviving on explosiveness. That's how you frustrate a quarterback who thrives on chaos. There's also an element of patience required from fans watching this unfold. This may not be a game that feels comfortable at any point. It may feel tense, tight, and emotionally draining. That doesn't mean the Eagles are failing. Often, it means they're executing exactly what they need to execute. Against a team like Buffalo, comfort is usually an illusion. What makes this stretch so important is that it mirrors what January football demands. Road environments, elite quarterbacks, physical run games, defenses that test your discipline. The Eagles don't get to choose the conditions in the playoffs. They only get to choose how prepared they are when conditions hit. Games like this are the rehearsal. So as you watch, look beyond the score and ask yourself what this team is telling you about who they are. Are they composed when things swing? Do they respond instead of react? Do they stay committed to their strengths even when the game demands patience? Those answers matter more than anything else right now. And as the final minutes approach, this game becomes less about reacting to Buffalo and more about trusting the work Philadelphia